New comments from Chinese leader Xi Jinping, who took a veiled dig at the U.S. as he promoted his vision of a new global order. Xi told leaders at a major summit, quote, "The house rules of a few countries should not be imposed by others." He said more as well.
We should advocate for an equal and orderly, multipolar world and a universally beneficial and inclusive economic globalization, and make the global governance system more just and equitable.
What's truly interesting is who was there rubbing shoulders with Xi. Russia's Vladimir Putin and India's Narendra Modi all shared a laugh with the Chinese leader on the sidelines, really almost literally rubbing shoulders. For Modi, it was his first trip to China in 7 years. Let's get right to CNN's Ivan Watson, who is in Tianjin, China, with this rather extraordinary summit. Ivan.
That's right, and it's wrapping up now. The leaders of countries from across the Middle East and Asia have been gathering in this huge building here. Where they boast that they represent nearly 50% of the world's population, starting to see their motorcades leave now, John. And I think the enduring image is of those leaders of three of the world's largest countries, Russia, China, and India, looking pretty cordial and happy together, and all agreeing that this is a time of global uncertainty, and they're all calling for some kind of newer, fairer system of government. A lot of digs taken at what they describe as a world order that's been dominated too much, they argue, by the U.S. since the collapse of the Soviet Union. Chinese leader Xi Jinping complaining about bullying. The Russian President Vladimir Putin saying that this kind of Atlantic Eurocentric world order, these institutions are outdated. Of course, he's complaining at the same time as his military is nightly bombing cities in Ukraine in a war that he only described here as a crisis. It is notable that the Prime Minister of India was here. He skipped last year's Shanghai Cooperation Organization summit, in part, I think, because of the fact that India and China's relations have been pretty bad. About 5 years ago, soldiers from India and China were beating each other to death in skirmishes in a disputed border region in the Himalayas. He's clearly here mending fences and still stinging from the fact that the Trump administration just days ago imposed 50% tariffs on India, much higher than on India's arch rival Pakistan. And that's seen by many Indian experts as stabbing India in the back and a U-turn on decades of growing U.S.-Indian relations. Watch this place closely, because in a couple days' time, China will go from flexing its diplomatic muscles to flexing military muscles with a huge parade, military parade in Beijing. It will be attended by none other than Vladimir Putin and also the leaders of North Korea and Iran. John.
Yeah. High symbolism there. Ivan Watson, great to have you. Thank you very much. Bianna?
All right, joining me now is CNN senior affairs analyst Kim Dozier. If there's anyone who loves a military parade, Kim, we know it's Vladimir Putin. He's conducted one every year in Moscow, and now he's going to be there with Xi Jinping on Wednesday to watch China's. To pick up on what Ivan said about Putin's statements, here's what he said today at the summit and how he described the SCO, the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. He said it's a system that could replace the outdated Europe Central and Euro-Atlantic models and would take into account the interests of a maximum number of countries and would be truly balanced. Putin has long been pushing for a multipolar world order, one that is less focused on U.S. and a unipolar world dominated by the U.S. being the global superpower. Is he getting that wish come true now?
Well, what we're seeing is this formation of this Eurasian bloc that is strengthening its ties economically, militarily, diplomatically, and China is in the lead. You know, China wants to conquer the world through trade, through markets, vice through force, and replace the U.S. as the leading global power. And it's taking advantage of this moment when Trump has alienated people, so many nations, including India, which was becoming an ally, whereas in the previous White House administration, the Biden administration had used market forces and joining together to try to discipline China and Russia. In this case, however, we see that sort of method being thrown out the window, and now these tariffs producing a fusion of nations that haven't always had the West's best interest at heart, especially as we see with the war of aggression in Ukraine.
Yeah, and Modi making his first trip to China in some 7 years, coming after the U.S. slapped an additional 50% tariff on India for purchasing Russian oil and gas. And yet we saw those striking images of Modi not only sitting in Putin's motorcade for an hour for a meeting prior to walking in and meeting with other world leaders, but they walked in hand in hand. The two countries have long had a close history dating back to the Cold War and the Soviet Union era. But do you envision this being an opportunity not only for Modi to get closer with Xi Jinping, but also with Vladimir Putin? These sanctions appear, at least optically, to only be bringing these two closer. They not only buy Russian oil and gas, we should note they also buy arms from Russia.
Yeah, Russia and India have always historically had close ties because Russia has time and time again helped India out militarily. Much of India's military manufacturing systems are based on Russian models and need to be resupplied by Russia. But what you also have is this new pressing together of the two sides because while India had been taking advantage, yes, of cheap Russian crude, India sells that Russian crude onwards to the European Union, which has doubled the amount that it buys from India. So inside India, you see this fury over what they see as a double standard. The EU escapes U.S. tariffs over secondhand purchase of Russian oil. China isn't facing tariffs over its much larger portions of Russian oil. All of that together spells out an India that is ready to do business with anyone but the U.S. right now.
Yeah, China, we should note, the largest buyer of Russian oil there. Kim Dozier, thank you so much.